Hello, fourth graders. Today is Thursday. We are on our fourth lesson for distance learning. I'm really starting to miss seeing you guys in person. You're doing a great job with all of your work. Keep it up. We are almost to Friday. So today we are on 3-8 for math, modeling tenths and with fraction circles. So hopefully you can guess then that you're going to need your fraction circles today. Those will definitely come in handy too. Whoops. So we're going to do this math journal page together. And I promise this lesson will not take as long as yesterday's. I know that was long, but we had a lot to go through, and comparing and ordering fractions is really tricky. So today we're going to do page 89 together in your math journal. So take out those fraction circle pieces and your math journal. Turn to page 89 and we will get started. So right at the top here, so it says modeling tenths. So I'm sure that based on that and looking at the pictures here, you can see that that is what we're going to be working with today is tenths. So you can take out just your tenth pieces for your fraction circles. So those should be your purple pieces that you have. Okay, and before we even do anything with those, as you can see on that math journal page, for numbers 1, 2, and 3, it says to write a fraction and a decimal below the circle. Okay, that fraction part should be pretty easy peasy, lemon squeezy. But the decimal part, that will also be easy, but we need to talk about it first. So if we have, so that very first one, let's look at the fraction. Okay, I'm gonna zoom in here. Look at the fraction, okay? So there are 8 of the 10 pieces colored in. Okay, so I bet some of you already even have that written down because you knew that that fraction was going to be 8 tenths. Okay, now the part that you're maybe a little bit unsure about is the decimal part and how to write 8 tenths. Back our journal page. Okay, so we have the fraction 8 tenths. If you look at our 8 tenths at our circle, it is not a whole, correct? That's why it is 8 tenths. It's 2 pieces away from being a whole. Our decimal for 8 tenths looks like that. 0 with the decimal point there, 8, 0.8. And you read that as 8 tenths. Okay, our fraction, we've got half of this one filled in. Again, there's 10 pieces because we're working with tenths. So our fraction is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tenths. Okay, and if I were to write tenths is how you read that, 5 tenths. Okay, now the next one, I'm sure you've saw that that looks a little bit different. It's split into fifths instead of tenths, but that's okay because we know that 10 is double 5. Okay, so we can, I'm even just gonna draw them right in there. So you have a couple options. So our fraction, first off, could be, just as you see, 3/5. Okay, or if you were writing it as tenths, think about it like this. each of these would just be split in half. Okay, so then we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tenths. And then as a decimal, that's going to look like this, 6 tenths. Okay. I hope you're enjoying this. I like this lesson. This one's kind of fun. Okay, now we're going to color each part, or color part of each circle to show the decimal. Then you're going to name the fraction. Okay, so this, if you have to, what's it say? 1, that spot. All right, now when we color that in, if we're coloring 1/10, there's 10 pieces. We are going to color just one of those. Okay, so go ahead and color one of those. And then as a fraction, it's gonna look like this. Oops. Gotta get back to my 1/10. 1/10. Okay. Now I want you to pause the video and try 5 and 6 on your own, because I think that you're probably ready for that. So color in 9/10, and then here you're coloring 4/10. Okay, the second one, 4/10. So just like this one, okay, it's actually split into fifths, but you can imagine it as tenths. Okay, so pause the video, try those, and then play the video back when you're ready to see how you did. All right, so hopefully you paused that video to do your work. Now our 9/10, okay, this is split into 10. So we're going to color for 9/10, we're going to color all of them but one. Okay. So coloring all of them but one. All right. That will do. Okay, and then your fraction should look like this, 9/10. Okay, the next one, all right, our fraction was 4/10. Okay, now remember, because these are only split into fifths, okay, our fraction is going to look like this, 4/10. Okay, now if you had to, you could actually draw these ends, split it into tenths. Okay, and then color in 4 of them. Or some of you might have been able to think ahead and think, okay, so if this is only split into 5, 5 is half of 10. So to make this equivalent, 2 is half of 4. Okay, some of you are maybe like, what are you talking about, Miss Haslett? How'd you do that? So remember, to get an equivalent fraction, if you multiply the top and bottom by the same number, you can get that equivalent fraction. So 5 times 2 is 10. 2 times 2 is 4. So 2/5 is equivalent to 4/10. So when I color that in, I'm going to color 2/5. Okay, and then again, I'll show you if this was split into 10 pieces, voila. Now you just went, you had 2/5 of them colored. Now you have 1, 2, 3, 4/10 of them colored. And I didn't color any others. It's the same amount. So because they are equivalent fractions. Okay? Now, down here, you're going to write greater than or equal to, greater than, equal to, or less than to make the number sentence true. Okay? So if you want to get out your fraction pieces, your tenths, you can do that. Or I think a lot of you might be able to even do this without that. Okay? Now some of the trickier ones, okay, you're going to have to pay attention here and here and here and here because they have whole numbers attached to them. Okay, so that means it is 1 whole plus some more. So if I looked at just my, let's see, this one here, okay. So what you're going to have to, first off, you need to look at that whole number, okay? They have the same whole number. So then we just need to compare the tenths, okay? And what's bigger, 4/10 or 3/10? All right, so think about that for that one, and then pay attention here. There's whole numbers, and whole numbers. So I'd like you to pause the video, try those 7 through 14, and then when you are done, you can unpause and check your work. All right, so number 7, I'm going to read through these number sentences with the answers in them. So 2/10 is less than 9/10. 7/10 is greater than 6/10. Now listen carefully with how I say this. Number 9, 1 and 4/10 is greater than 1 and 3/10. Number 10, 3 and 2/10. So that's 3 wholes with 2/10. 3 and 2/10 is greater than 1 and 8/10. 11, 3/10 is less than 5/10. Number 12, those are exactly equal. 1/10 is equal to 1/10. 13, 2 and 1/10 is less than 2 and 2/10. And 14, 10 and 1/10 is less than 11 and 1/10. Okay, so when you're comparing the ones with the whole numbers, so 14, for example, it's 10 and 1/10 compared to 11 and 1/10. Well, right away, 10 is smaller than 11. Okay, so 10 and 1/10 is less than 11 and 1/10. Okay, and I want to just show you an example. Number 9, just what this would look like. So you could use your fraction pieces, okay, and 1 and 4/10, you're going to have one of your reds, okay, your 1 whole, And then I'm just gonna, okay, so you've got your 1 whole. Had to pause there and try and figure out how to turn my pen to purple. And I drew some not so great tenths, but hopefully you can see my effort that I tried. So if we're looking at number 9, a visual representation, and you have your actual fraction pieces, so you can show this, but this is what 1 and 4/10 looks like. Okay, you have a 1 whole plus your 4/10, and this is what 1 and 3/10 looks like. You have your 1 and then your 3/10 here. Okay, so hopefully, ooh, that circle stayed there. I don't know what is different about that one. That's interesting. Let's just get rid of it. Okay, so hopefully this all made some good sense to you. I think that this is more fun and a little bit easier to understand maybe than the ordering and comparing decimals. That can be so tricky. So hopefully you feel good about this lesson today. You're going to do math journal or home link page 124. So you're going to do names for fractions and decimals. So you're going to actually write the fraction, the number in words. Do your best with spelling. I'll know what you mean. And you're going to have to write the fraction and the decimal. Okay, and then there's a number line where you're going to write what decimal is represented or what fraction is represented. So pay attention, it's a number line with 0 and 1. Okay, so it's a decimal or a fraction in between 0 or 1. And then down at the practice, you've got some factors and factor pairs that you are practicing again. All right, so please submit your math journal page with your beautiful work and your home link page with your beautiful work when you are completed. Happy Thursday. To show you a picture of a place value chart with decimals, because we are going to need to know a little bit about that today. So let me get that in here for you. So let's see, put that perfect. Fits real nicely in there. All right. Ooh, I like that. Okay. So it's as a decimal. So that's where this guy is going to come in. So this is a place value chart. Now you can see in the middle here we have a decimal point. Okay. So a decimal, you use that in a number when you're talking about a number that is in between 2 whole numbers. Okay, so very similar to a fraction. Okay, so for example, the number 1.5, or the fraction 1.5, that is in between 1 and 2. Okay, and it's represented as a fraction, 1.5. Okay, well, as a decimal, 1.5 can be written as 1.5, 1.5. Okay, but another way to read that number 1.5 as a decimal, if I go ahead and put this into my place value chart, my 1 is going to go here, okay, because that's a whole number. And then I have to the right of my decimal point, I have tenths, okay? So 1.5 can also be read as 1 5 tenths, okay? Which, if I write that as a fraction, how I'm saying it, 1 5 tenths, okay? Hopefully you've noticed then 1/2, 1 1/2 written here, is the half is equal to 5 tenths, 1 5 tenths. So all three of these are the same thing. They're equivalent to each other. 1.5 written as a fraction, 1 5 tenths written as a decimal, and then 1 5 tenths written as a fraction. Okay? So the first place to the right of our decimal point is the tenths place. Okay? And that is all that we need to worry about today. We're not talking about hundredths today, and we're not talking about thousandths today. Okay? We will talk about hundredths tomorrow, but not today. So that means let's get all of this cleared out of here so I can show you. Probably could have paused this, but some of you might actually like watching me erase that. Okay? All right, so 8 tenths is our fraction, okay? And so when we write that as a decimal, there will be nothing over here because we have not made it to 1 whole yet, okay? So our decimal will just look like this, 8 tenths. Okay, and we can actually, if you want, just to put a 0 here to hold that place, you can do that. Okay, because that is the place value on the place value chart. It's in the tenths place. The first spot, that first place to the right is the tenths place. Okay, so if we look at our next one, that as a decimal, remember I can put a 0 here because there's no ones. We have not made it to 1 whole yet, and 5. So 5, okay, we could look here, okay, and put that in. Whoops. Pressed the wrong eraser there. Okay, but we've got, okay, so that's what that's going to look like as a decimal. Okay, put our 0 there. How I actually say that, okay, you can say it 1.4. I hear a lot of people say it like that, 1.4, but another way to say it is 1 4 tenths. Okay, when we have a whole number with a decimal, the decimal, we put in the word and when we're saying it. So 1 4 tenths.